back at the house. We got the trailer back home. Car still looks good, but it's still not running. So fuel leak turned out to be just a seal on the sending unit like I thought it would be because I overfilled the tank. So we adjusted that, sealed that better. So under here, started messing around with it, and as I expected, it's ignition. So first I changed the coil, put a Pertronix coil in it, and still nothing. I was getting spark to the points, but it seemed kind of weak after I swapped the coil. So checked the spark at the plugs and nothing. The points were way out, so we adjusted those. You can see they look pretty new, but they're just not, it's just not working right. So I was figuring I'd get all that stuff new, and Bill from Flatbroke Garage called up and he said, hey man, I got a distributor for that. It was an extra one he's had kicking around for a long time. It's only been used for about an hour on dyno time. You can see the gear looks brand spanking new. It's a flamethrower, Pertronix. So we're gonna stab that sucker in there and hook it up with the flamethrower coil. And before we can complete that job, I have to get under the dash and get rid of the resistor wire because all the Pertronix stuff needs a full 12 volt going to it if it's a 12 volt system, 6 volt if it's 6 volt. So the other thing I did was we bypassed that cooler line going through the carburetor, which everybody was surprised that it still had it because I guess they're notorious for causing all sorts of trouble. And I can see how it would because you're running hot antifreeze through that carburetor right there, and with today's alcohol in the carburetors, it's probably going to make it really prone to vapor lock. That's initially what we thought the issue was because it was acting like it was a gas problem. The carburetor self-squirting just like it's supposed to, nice and clean. So the rebuild was right on that. I checked the float levels, they're where they're supposed to be. So I don't think it's fuel related. I'm pretty sure it's ignition. And upgrading away from the points to the Pertronix is good. To get rid of that ugly mess of hoses that was there, and they were orange and black, went down and got some new black hoses, ran the 3/4 inch hose from the water pump to the heater core, and then back with a 5/8 up to the split. So for now, I just put a plug in and a little short piece there. It was a cheap and easy way to do it. So for now, that'll work just to hold us. So the cooling system's back together. Now we just have to tackle this ignition system, and we'll be able to hopefully drive this thing and not be found on road dead again, or fix or repair it daily, because that's pretty much what I've been doing. I can't see it too well, but there's a dot on the balancer that marks top dead center. And I marked the 6 degree, which is where it's lined up with, and the 0 degree, which is that top mark. So we know we're at top dead center and timed. So then when we pop the cap off, it's 180 degrees out from number 1. So we're on top dead center for one of the cylinders. So I took a couple pieces of chrome tape. I put one back here to let me know that's where the pointer is for the rotor. And then I put this one here to let me know and orient where the advanced mechanism is. So that should give us pretty close, as long as that Pertronix is pretty close to the stock distributor. That'll get us close enough to be able to start it, to be able to time it. And sometimes what I do is, as I lift it out, as it rotates, I might mark it in another spot so I know where to drop it in as well. And it usually simplifies things a little bit. Distributor in, it was pointing right at the same spot it was before we took the old one out. We got this oriented about the same spot. Now we're still gonna have to adjust it, but it should get us close enough to time it. The difference between this distributor and the original one is the original one used fittings like this to run the vacuum up for the vacuum advance, where this one has a nipple here. So I hate to cut this original tube, but that screws in there and comes out. So we can just run a line to that, because originally this whole crazy contraption fit in underneath the fuel line like this, one end under there. You can see where that's that'd make a good fitting there, and it comes all the way over here and arcs way up. So I might end up cutting it right about there and just run a rubber hose up, or I might end up getting a new line. I'm not really too worried about originality, but I know other people are, so I might stick to it. So now we can put their cap back on, because we know that's right. And these are pretty easy to hook up. They're just a 2-wire hookup. So here's what comes out of it. You got the black to the negative side of the coil, red to the positive side. And of course you hook up your red wire from your ignition like normal, and you're good to go. So we're about where we gotta be. I decided to go ahead and hook up the coil on the wire. So if you come up here, you'll see this is on this side of the coil, the black wire runs to the new distributor. On this side, you have the power wire that normally goes back to the car, plus a red wire, that's a little thin one there, that goes also to the Pertronix. That's where it gets its 12 volt. So then I kind of just stuck it back together. I still have to hook up this vacuum hose to here, to there. I decided to cut that original line. I'll just run a black hose underneath. It'll blend in, it'll look a little better. And I'm probably gonna have to get plug wires. Now that's hooked up, I still have to reduce that down, or they get rid of the resistor wire underneath the dash, because once initial startup it has 12 volt, and then it drops down to 9, or 9.8, something like that. So it won't burn out the points. But without the points, we can run a full 12 volt to get a hotter spark, which will be better. But I'm dying to hear this thing run, so I'm gonna see if it'll start. Because if it does, we know we got a problem with it. Wow, I didn't expect it to start that easy. So that's a big difference. Let's see. Because we don't even have the 12 volt running to it yet. It's already run longer than it has since it broke down. So I'm sure what probably happened was that the points crapped out or the condenser crapped out. So now we got something we can run with. So this is good. We know we're gonna. So guys, we got to run 12 volt to the Pertronix, and there's this wire here. I don't know if I can get the light and have it held right. You see, it's a red wire with a green stripe. That ends there, and then the resistor wire plugs into that. Okay, normally it's up underneath the dash here, and then that runs over, gets all squirrely, disappears, can't get the sucker out, and then it runs down into the fuse block where it runs out into the engine bay. So the fuse block is the one that's unplugged up there, and it was really hard to trace, but we tested it, and it turns out it's this pink wire. We didn't think it would change color, and it was the only pink wire in the thing. So we figured it's probably it. So what we did, pulled it out of there, and we're gonna just bypass it for now. And I'll tape this up into the loom in case someone ever wants to go back to points, it's there. And then we'll just plug one of these bullet connectors into this, so we can plug it back into the factory harness. And we'll just use a short run of regular 12 volt non-resistor wire, which I happen to have from an old wiring kit from a couple hot rods we wired. So that one will run, the shorter the line, the more current it'll carry. So we'll just run that as short and direct as we can, and make it so it's a plug and play. So if anybody ever want to go back to original, it'd be nice and easy. And we'll tuck this back up under where it's hard to get to again. And you won't see it, it won't arc on anything because it's not hooked up to anything. We might put a little shrink tubing over the end to be on the safe side. So that's how we'll get 12 volt up to the starter, or 12 volt up to the coil. So when the starter's engaged, it gets 12 volt from the factory brown wire. And then when you release the key, it'll still feed full 12 volt from the switch to the coil, and we'll get this thing to run really, really good. So you got a bullet connector clamped on here, but we're gonna solder it to be on the safe side, and I'll slide a piece of shrink tubing down here to help protect that and keep that from touching anything else. But the boot on the factory wire will hide all that, and it'll fit right in there nice and tight, and it'll be good secure connection. We don't have to worry about it ever coming loose. So we got good flow in there. So seal that up real good. So we'll put a little shrink tubing over it next, and we'll be. All right, so we got to warm it up to top off the antifreeze. But we got everything all wired up. We got our 12 volt going to our Pertronix coil, and this thing starts better than it ever has. No, wrong. Just fire. This is great. So once it's warmed up, we'll top off that antifreeze. We'll be able to take it for a ride, and it should be ready. So we'll take it out. It's kind of nighttime today, so I'm not going to be boys in the nighttime. I might take her on the clock. Alright guys, here's our round 2. We swapped that distributor out for the Pertronix. You see, car's cruising along good. Almost 60 miles an hour. And you let go of the wheel. It tracks really nice. I'm still not a fan of the brakes. I think I gotta lengthen that rod a little bit more. But it goes down the road really nice. Yeah, 60 miles miles an hour. No hands on the wheel. Running good. I think we got this distributor issue licked. I'm pretty sure it was the condenser. Alright. This feels good. So what's disappointing is my gas gauge is way off. I just filled it up and it's reading 3/4 of a tank. So I'm off by quarter, but I guess it's the right direction. So when it gets down to E, I know I still got a quarter tank left, but at least that gives me plenty of reserve. And I got to adjust the idle down a little bit. It's idling a little bit high, but we're cruising nice and comfortable. I got to attend to the brakes a touch, get them to grab a little better, adjust them up. Maybe some new adjusters might be in order. But I think it's ready to cruise overall. And it's a nice fall night down here in western North Carolina to be cruising in an old red T-Bird with the colors changing on the leaves and everything. This is an alright thing. I can get used to this. So here you have it, guys. We were able to make it down the road and make it back again. Car goes down the road pretty good. I still need to do some tension on the brakes to make it stop a little better, but overall it looks pretty good. So with a setup like this, here's a little walk around as it's sitting there idling. We'll take it to a car show, cruise in down in Blairsville and see what happens. Alright, so we made it to our first cruise in and kind of picked a good period spot to park next to. Got Fair Lane and the Edsel and stuff, so here we are. The old T-Bird made it. We're down in Blairsville, Georgia. This is their last cruise in on the square. It's a busy night tonight. 52 Chevy, yeah. And it's just a cool, I love that sticker right there. Drag racing because dying rich is dumb. It's just a neat old gasser, man. It's he brings a sidekick with him. And this is kind of a neat idea here. He's got an LT1 and he custom fabricated this intake here so you can set it up so quick glance it looks like an old box tunnel ramp. It's just a fun little hot rod. Got a big tire car. A little tight on trunk space.
How you doing, Jen?
Hey, how are you? Nice Nova. Big old Cadillac. Look at the size of steer horns. They're wider than the Cadillac is. This little sea cab. The Moonshine Express. I have not seen this car before. That's a pretty neat little car. There goes a new vet. I wasn't expecting it, but first cruise-in car show with it, and we won a trophy. Best 60s. Pretty cool.